Welcome, dear friends, to another study episode of the book Paul and Stephen. It's a book we're not tired of reading time and again and studying it. This book was psychographed by the medium Chico Xavier. It is a must, no matter if people think they are religious or not. It tells a true account, but it goes deeper into the behind the scenes. When we get to know of this, we're mesmerized. Did you know that in Brazil, there are scholars who went as deep as researching the historical components of this book? And they observed that science in geology, in several different fields of sociology, history, it confirms many of the historical points, and there are new ones that were unveiled through the mediumship of Chico Xavier that later were confirmed by science. The description of one of the main cities in this book, the very first city we are in, Corinth. Yes, in that city where we start, the description wasn't quite what historians thought until later. This book was brought to life precisely in the year 1941. 1941, the world was under a Second World War in extreme peril, and yet Chico Xavier never stopped working to the benefit of all. Think about this. And he psychographed this during his lunch hour in his workplace, so his boss would allow him to use the basement of his house, which was quite tranquil. Nobody would bother him. He would be there for an hour and psychographing this book. Later, he would type it in and then published. Today, we're going to begin part 1, chapters 1 and 2. You can read this book also in Kindle format. It's already available in English, in Portuguese, in French, in Spanish, many languages. It begins with Afflicted Hearts. Where are we? In the city of Corinth, in Greece. It's part of the Roman Empire, anyhow. We're talking about the year 34. That's what Emmanuel, the spirit author, describes. It's year 34 after Christ, a year after Jesus departed. And what is happening in the Roman Empire? Many things, amongst them, the oppression of slaves, the oppression of the Jewish people by the Roman Empire, and lots of mini wars, battles, revolts in the Roman Empire. This is the status of it. So there are lots of tensions socially between the Roman Empire and the people who are its subjects, the slaves, the Jewish people, many other people. So there we are, and Julius Caesar rebuilt the city, and Corinth was the most beautiful jewel of the old Achaia and served as the capital of that province. Terrible crimes, says Emmanuel, were happening left to right. So why is this so important for us to read? Because when you go online, you may say, oh my gosh, the world has always been messy, and we're trying to fix it. Today we have laws we didn't have then. Today we have justice then we didn't have it. The world is progressing. Back then, the brutality was immense, to the point that we're going to find a family a Jewish family. Emmanuel introduces us to the man Joshedeb. Joshedeb is the man who is walking in the streets. He's by himself, he's going to the market, buying things, and he sees Roman soldiers. Well, at that moment, he passed by and he didn't say hi because they were oppressed. He thought, I'm not going to say anything. Well, the Roman guard didn't like it, turned to him and very brutally said, Hey, you, despicable Jew, how dare you walk by without greeting your masters? The man froze. Remember, Joshedeb was old. And in this dialogue, he says, I didn't dare to say hi, to greet you. And he said to the officer, You didn't dare? So then he closed his fists and started pummeling the face of this old man. Pause. How would you feel? None of us would feel good in face of facing such injustice. Joshedeb remained calm externally, but inside he was very angry. And he recalled the many problems that he and his family went through, the humiliation, says Emmanuel, that he suffered in those years, not only him, but the Jewish of all times. I know we're living at a moment on earth when there is this war and many people are against the Jewish. We at Kardec Radio don't take sides, but we want everybody to reflect on the fact that we have the Jewish people throughout humankind history constantly being victimized in so many ways. It wasn't different at the ancient Roman Empire. And the city of Corinth, that province, had a questor of the empire, a man who was quite rude and cruel, Licinius Minucius. He stole part of Joshedeb's family's fortune. His wife even died out of anguishes. And he was recalling all this and he felt so much bitterness, but then he loved his children. He had two children, Abigail and Jeziel. He started walking back to his house, and then he again faced some other soldiers from the ancient Roman Empire. This time he decided to say hi. Why? These tribunes were brutal. They're like, what? What is this? They say. A Jew imprudently addressing patricians. Has the condemnable tolerance of the provincial authorities gone so far? We'll just take justice into our own hands. And then they started beating him up to the point there's blood coming out of his face. And they shoo him away. Joshedeb goes home. When he goes back to his modest home, we see the beautiful Abigail, 18 years of age, and Jaziel, both. He's 25, she's 18. Abigail, so gracious, so loving, so sweet. And Joshedeb, when Jaziel comes, he shares what happened. Now, a lesson for us. Introducing us to Jaziel, later Stephen, Emmanuel is inviting you and I for a lesson. He says, Father, take heart. Our God is just and wise. Let us trust in his protection. Well, Joshedeb says, "Oh, son, but the Lord is full of justice. I'm going to go there and tell Licinius Minucius that, you know, we need our land back." And then Giselle says, "Father, I beg you, do not seek this recourse." And the old man is furious. He says, "What about the persecutions? What about our disgrace?" And Jeziel then said, "But these torments, father, are nothing new. Centuries ago, Egyptian pharaohs took their cruelty so far with our forebears that the boys of our people were murdered at birth." And then he starts telling the story of the Jewish suffering. God allows these things to happen so that Israel may recognize the divine mission amongst its suffering. Well, no matter what Abigail and Jezeel say, next day the father goes, talks to the quaestor. The quaestor is upset and says, "You know what? You were so daring that I'm now going to take everything. You have 3 days to get away from your house and leave it for us." That's how people got rich. No wonder Emmanuel says that the riches of the world are most often made of injustices. Mhm. And we think it's so beautiful to be wealthy, right? But often it doesn't come from true sweat and tears, it comes from injustices. And well, Joshedeb is furious. He leaves the office of the quaestor, Licinius Minucius, and he's so angry. Dominated by bitter thoughts, he approached the beloved place of his family. He looked at his property, obsessed by the idea of revenge. He decided to put fire on the neighbor's land, but that neighbor's land is Licinius Minucius. So now you know. He puts fire, the fire spreads, it kills animals, it kills two major slaves of Licinius Minucius. Jeziel doesn't know that his father did this. He was working in the land, so he went by helping the neighbor. Comes back. When he comes back, he finds the father and Abigail talking, and he confesses his crime. Soon, somebody comes and says that the Roman guards are coming for them. They are arrested. The whole family is. They're going to be tortured. This is chapter 2. It's about tears and torture. It describes how it goes. The father is punished. If not enough, Jeziel says he did it. Licinius Minucius knows he didn't do it, but says, since you confess, you're going to pay the price, and then you're going to be sent to slavery. At some point, as Abigail is watching her father, and her brother being tortured to death, she sees that the father dies. Jeziel says, "Sister, please say out loud, sing the prayer of the afflicted." A most beautiful prayer. And Emmanuel describes to us this very prayer right here for us. And I'm opening for you. Because for both Jeziel and Abigail, their childhood was very solid in spiritual teachings. And she sings, "Lord God, Father of those who weep, of the sad and oppressed, fortress of the defeated, comfort of all pain, despite the bitter misery of the weeping over our errors. From this world of exile we call for your love. In the afflictions of the way, in the night most tormenting, your generous fount is the good that will never go dry. You are in everything the light eternal of joy and peace, our doorway of hope which will never close. In these two chapters, besides the story, which ends in this moment as Joshedeb dying by being whipped out to death, Jeziel is beaten up and then sent to slavery. And after the singing of that song, Licinius Minucius says, "Please read of this girl." A kind guard says to her, "Lady, please go away from Corinth, far away from here." She asks for somebody's help, and she ends up being helped by a family. But what is the main lesson for us today? Two lessons of many. We chose two highlights. One, are there reasons for our suffering? We're not saying what happened to Joshedeb, Abigail, and Jeziel was right. But Jeziel opens the scriptures and reads in the scriptures before the father takes the wrong route. He reads the scripture and prays. And in the scriptures, it says quite clearly that we need, look, his reading says to us that God is educating his children, disciplining, and we should accept it. How many people are rebellious in their life because they don't have the financial resources they want, the job they want, the children they want, the marriage that they want, the beauty they want, the car that they want, the exposure, the fame, the influence. And then they start making crazy things like Joshedeb, even killing people, creating slander against people, and many other problems. So we're being called first and foremost to what we call resignation, surrender. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, Kardec says to us that calm and surrender to God are antidotes to madness and suicide. Joshedeb went mad when he put fire in somebody else's lands. The consequences came to him. Nothing that happens to us comes without a reason. In the past, we were the ones taking the lands of other people. Today we have ours taken away. And the second most important point is about childhood. In these two chapters, we see how important Jeziel and Abigail's mother and the whole family into cherishing excellent, noble virtues. They were religious, which nowadays is no longer happening for people. People are no longer religious, and when they are, people think it's bad. So, friends, when the mother taught Jeziel and Abigail to surrender to God, she constantly reminded them, when problems happen, remember of God. In the most difficult time that they were being beaten up, tortured by the Roman guards, both Jeziel and Abigail were recalling the mother's instruction in their childhood. As a scientist and a psychologist, I can confirm to you that this is not fiction, it is true. We need to teach our children not only to pray, but to make sense of life's challenges. But what do parents do? A teacher is crazy. And we say, the teacher is crazy. But do you pray for that teacher? Do we practice forgiveness in the family for the person who doesn't know what they are doing? Do we? Most often we don't. When a friend bullies our child, what do we teach our child? Go, avenge them. No, we don't. Even if the teachers come to you and say that your child needs to stand up for themselves, needs to fight back, no. We fight back with kindness, with love. What if your child comes to you and says, but I'm not respected? How can I become respected? It's very easy. If you deeply respect people, people will respect you sooner or later. It's a conquest. So in these 2 chapters, we're learning about surrender, facing adversities, surrender to God. As Jaziel says on and off, he says, always recalling the childhood. In prayers of sublime fervor, Abigail prayed to God, that gentle and loving God, whom her mother had taught her to worship. See? And the same happened to Jaziel, that knew and he would repeat that God has a reason for such happenings. Everything that happens to us is for the good of us, if we seek the good. No wonder Emmanuel, through the hands of Chico Xavier in another book on life, says, if you want to get rid of the shackles of your life, seek the good. Feel the good. Visualize the good. Mold the good with all the resources you have at hand. Learn to love people in your life, in your family, at work, in our neighborhood, in our community. Praying and wishing everybody well. Today we're going to meditate on this, on these immortal lessons. Stimuli for a new life for us. I know it's easier said than done, but isn't it worthwhile learning something new? Learning to forgive and forget. Learning to understand. Learning to be resilient. Learning to endure and to love. Let's meditate on this. As we prepare during this week, chapters 3 and 4, read them. Come with your comments, your questions. Let us together strengthen ourselves for immortality, shall we, friends? We want to thank you for being here with us, and we look forward to being with you at another Paul and Stephen study moment here at Kardec Radio.